Welcome, everyone. Another episode of The Turning Point. How are you doing today, Versan?
I'm doing better. Thank you very much. Yourself? I know you had a rough week.
Yeah, I'm doing better. I think people who follow me on X, they have seen what was going on. I got a strike on my YouTube channel, so I was not able to stream and also to post anything. Videos, community was all taken down. And then I appealed the strike, and happily enough, so there were two strikers and they lift one of the strikes. So happily I am back able to use my channel, but I have to say the truth, it has been very stressful because just last week I was blackmailed by the TikTokers, the cyber terrorists that took my TikTok. So just a few days after I finally recovered the TikTok, they took down my YouTube. So I am happy that I recover everything now. So it has been stressful, but I'm glad the markets are pumping. I am also happy we are able to live stream today. So let's get started.
Yeah. And just to share with you, I've been a victim to the same kind of censorship on YouTube. It's becoming incredibly difficult to share the truth honestly and transparently in the space. And finally, it's like if you play the narrative that they're trying to sell people, then you're rewarded for that. But if you can bend it, distort it, even openly mislead it, you're still allowed to do that. But overall, you're not able to share the truth.
That's true. So we have to be very careful with how we word things on the live streamings, because that ultimately can lead to more censorship. But we are working our best to give you all the best information, and we are working our ways here. Okay, so well, we have a list of topics. I think it's relevant. If you allow me, Versan, I don't know if you have one first topic that you would like to discuss. Anything specific?
I mean, I'm happy to let you start. I will give some info later on.
Okay, so I would start with something that I already mentioned in the last turning point, and that's about the dormant BTC wallets. That's being overlooked by mainstream media. Every single analyst in the market's not talking about this because it's not convenient. However, just about, I guess, 3 hours ago, we spotted another movement. So they have moved indeed 20,000 BTC from the dormant wallets. We all know that initially it was 80,000 BTC, and now suddenly 3 wallets have awakened up once again. So I'm going to show that on the screen. And I have been talking, well, first I did a video on this. There was this, I contacted someone that is from on-chain school. He's a blockchain forensic, if you will. So he's an expert on on-chain data. I do know how to analyze on-chain data, but they have made it in such a sophisticated way that I had to reach out for help. And I have been talking to this friend of mine. I'll bring him on my channel. I wanted to make the video together with Versan, but unfortunately, he only speaks Spanish. So he So he sent me the entire analysis in Spanish, and I had to translate it gave me so much work because I had to translate everything from Spanish to English, which neither of the languages is my mother language. But well, I hope my next video will cover this, but I want to give a brief analysis of what we have identified on chain. And the first is that these entities, and by the way, that's not an individual. We have ruled out 100%. That's not someone that recovered the keys or someone that bought BTC back in 2010, 2011. So these wallets, we tracked it down all the way to 2011, and that comes from BTC mining. So the mining, these BTCs were mined, and then they were passed on until they reached the final wallets. But they have used a very unique pattern of transactions that's called peel transactions, and that has only one goal. It's basically to obfuscate the transactions and make it very difficult, if not impossible, to track down the transactions. So there is something very big happening behind the scenes here with these bitcoins that have been moving. Like that's 0.63% of the entire circulating supply. And what surprises me more is that there is like 8 different wallets, but the ones that moved today, there is one very specific that I'm going to bring to the stage here. And basically, when you generate wallets on the blockchain, you can have the possibility to implement random words inside the wallets, but that's very difficult. Sometimes you can't do it precisely what you want to pass on the wallets. And it can take even days for you to manage to achieve something like what you are seeing on the screen here. So I want you to notice that there are 2 final wallets. So final 7 and final 1. And if you read carefully, final 1, and you go all the way to the end of the wallet, you will see that there is a hidden word that says literally, I don't know if I should say it live, but it starts with F. So if you pay attention here, you see that they are hiding messages on these wallets. I think that's intentional. All these BTC were moved on the 4th of July on the United States. I think it's Independence Day, right? So that might be also something symbolic. And well, the thing that was scary today is that just a few minutes after this 20,000 BTC moved on the blockchain, the BTC price was very near to the all-time high at $123,000, and we had quite a big dump to 119,000. So I wonder, I can't prove it, but there might be a relation, because this is not the typical whale movement. And just the final thoughts on this before I ask Versan his thoughts, I also want to hear your opinion, is that this is not the typical whale behavior. I mean, this is Satoshi era coins that are on the move. Nobody would hold all this BTC for such a long period of time. So that signals that it's something bigger. It's the biggest move of BTC since 2010 and 2011 from Satoshi era. That's not the average movement. That's why I have been paying so much attention for what's happening behind the scenes. And the reality about Bitcoin is that everyone is paying attention to Satoshi's wallet, which is about 1 million BTC. Let me just remove this from the stage. So everyone's paying attention here, Satoshi's wallet, which is about 1 million BTC. But I find out that this is a distraction. Satoshi's wallet doesn't really matter, because when you go on chain, you realize that back in 2010-11, there was a huge amount of BTC that were all mined between 3, 4, 5 periods of difference. That's about 7 million BTC. And they all have used sophisticated mechanisms, just like what I mentioned before, the pill transaction pattern that it's usually to obfuscate the transaction. So we have millions of BTC that could reach centralized exchanges at any given time, and they don't even need to use Satoshi's wallets. This group alone controls about the same amount of BTC not the same amount, but about 1% of the entire supply of Bitcoin. So what I was talking to this friend of mine, which is an expert, he knows much more than I do when the topic is on-chain analysis. He told me that in 2025, we still have no software that is capable of the same pattern of transactions. When we see that on the blockchain, we're talking about thousands of transactions in a short period of time. That makes absolutely no sense. Also makes it impossible to go through the entire history of transactions. Basically, he took like 11 hours of his time to just bring it to light and make us understand what was really going on, but we can't even get access to the entire data. So they are using very sophisticated ways, and everyone's paying attention to Satoshi's wallet. But it turns out that Satoshi's wallet is the bait. It's just a distraction, and we have this huge systemic threat to Bitcoin when we are talking about such a large amount of coins that are centralized in the hands of few individuals, wallets, entities. I don't really know how to describe it. And the most interesting is that he told me that years of analysis, the pattern is very clear. The next step after the consolidation phase, what we are looking now, is to hit a centralized exchange. So I wonder what's going to happen when 80,000 BTC or 20,000 BTC hit a centralized exchange. How is that going to affect the markets? Now, I'm very happy, Versan, to have the opportunity to hear your thoughts on that.
I think overall, I hear a reverb. Okay, I'm sorry. There we go. I was saying it's no surprise, Edo, to your point, that these Bitcoin wallets are suddenly waking up, because that's what they've done. That's what they've always done. They sell into strength and they short the market, essentially. And that's when they begin to rotate whatever they sell into real assets that include gold, silver, land, and of course, select altcoins. That's why altcoins begin to move after Bitcoin peaks. And meanwhile, the Bitcoin retail investors are actually left holding the bag. And what most people don't realize with Bitcoin is that they're, every time you're hodling, that's the term they use, blindly, I would say, you're actually handing over your wealth to the early Bitcoin whales. And that's the trap. They've created the narrative around this, and the people simply fell for it. So I've got nothing against, again, those who are playing Bitcoin long. And I think if you're going to play Bitcoin long, then make sure you treat it like not a hedge, but as an investment opportunity to get in and out, because Bitcoin has indeed become a politicized asset now. But let's not pretend to assume that it's actually immune to the same cycles that the game has always played overall. And finally, that does go into the whole Tether, dilemma over there. We had a subscriber recently, of a subscriber who's been supporting us for a very long time, recently make a comment that I thought was very naive. But he said, what if Tether is printing trillions and trillions of dollars? What the hell does that have to do with anything? And I was like, oh my God. Well, haven't you been paying attention to anything we've been saying over the years? And here's why it matters. Remember, also Tether, if it does collapse like Terra Luna did, which was the last stablecoin that did collapse, it didn't just shake the crypto market, it actually detonated it. And if, unlike Terra Luna, Tether, it holds up the whole illusion. We're talking about it props up nearly every fake token, every scam project that's out there, which is 99% in my opinion, and every speculative bubble that still does exist in the crypto space. So it's a lifeline for the system that's built, again, on leverage and even speculation and even deception, I would say. And when it does snap, and it will, it's not just going to wipe out most of crypto, it's going to ripple into the traditional financial markets as well, because so much of it is interconnected and equally fragile, I would say. And the elites, I would say, know this. Those are the Bitcoin whales you're talking about. They've created the circus so they can actually confuse retail investors. They can keep pumping worthless garbage. And when the time is right, it's very simple. They're going to pull the plug like they've always done, only to turn around and say, hey guys, this is why we need government-backed protocols, government-backed stablecoins, government-backed solutions. And that's kind of what we're talking about here for years, this infrastructure. So when someone says, so what? I think they're missing the whole point. And whoever pays attention to the price when this all blows up, it's not really going to be the insiders. It's people like, whoever made that comment over there. But overall, I think you're doing great research, and you're exposing the dilemma here. But also, if I may share this, if it's okay, I have a video that will support a lot of what you've been saying, if you guys don't mind. And I did turn up the volume. So you can hear it.
Okay. Before, just a final comment that I remembered on the Dormant BTC, which, by the way, is just a comment. I don't have an opinion, but it's very interesting. You know that Bitcoin Cash is a fork. I mean, we can argue that the Bitcoin today is a fork of Bitcoin Cash, and the funds also moved on Bitcoin Cash. So before they made all the transactions on Bitcoin itself, they moved the same funds on Bitcoin Cash. It's just a comment. It's just food for thought. I don't really know what that really means, but they moving on both chains. That's very unique.
Yeah. I think it was always Bitcoin Cash. And I've said this before, that if you're going to invest in Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash was actually where the real utility protocol was to move money around if you wanted to. As far as Bitcoin, that is a politicized asset, and they're treating it like they are oil, creating demand for dollars and using Tether as a mechanism to keep that revolving door going. I know it sounds crazy, but you start to do the research on this stuff, I'm telling you, you will come to the same conclusion. Let me go ahead and play that video real quick. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Edo, in the meantime, you and I will mute so people can hear it. Give me 1 second. My apologies. Here you go. Please, in the comments, give us a thumbs up if you can hear this.
So there's a couple of things that are worth hitting on Bitcoin. And again, I have a very strong view on Bitcoin that ultimately it is a true Ponzi asset, meaning the only value that it derives is from other people deciding it is worth a lot. We can talk through some of the mechanics on it. Bitcoin is super interesting because it has effectively a fixed supply, or a largely fixed supply. The demand factor is really the only thing that drives it. If we take that same analysis, and I'll just show very quickly here, like what's driving Bitcoin prices at this point, almost all of the behavior of Bitcoin can be explained by fund flows at this point. Right, so this is literally just looking at the change in Bitcoin held in ETFs relative to the change in price in Bitcoin. You can see that any 1 month change in Bitcoin price is very well explained by the change in Bitcoin held in funds. And this is pretty remarkable when you consider that there's tons of participants right now who are trying to replicate the MicroStrategy approach, right? It's called strategy now. You know, the approach of we're going to build a Bitcoin treasury. So there's significant amounts of corporate buying that I'm not capturing here, by the way. And it's still, like, interestingly enough, given the accumulation, Bitcoin is underperforming what we would expect slightly. That tells me that there is net selling from whales. It's the same thing that are original holders of Bitcoin. Very similar to that idea of insider selling in corporations. Nobody cares, right? It does affect the price, but at the end of the day, nobody who is deciding to build a Bitcoin stockpile in their treasury is saying, gosh, the insiders are selling, maybe I should be thoughtful about this. No, they're just trying to capture the premium associated with it. When the ducks quack, you want to feed them. Bitcoin is it is a super interesting asset in a variety of ways, but that feature of scarcity is what has convinced people that it is money, right? That somehow or another we can have an endogenous monetary system that emerges from a peer-to-peer payment system that has largely failed as a peer-to-peer payment system. Unfortunately, it turns out that scarcity and that fixed cap of Bitcoin also changes the game in a very meaningful fashion. Because there will only be 21 million Bitcoin, at least according to its current programming, and because give or take 20 million of those have already been created, the distribution of who holds Bitcoin is largely fixed. There is no real mechanism for the remaining 7.5 billion people in the world to get a hold of Bitcoin in any meaningful way. Bitcoin proponents will tell you, well, they'll just stack sats, right? It's infinitely divisible. Well, infinitely divisible doesn't change distribution. It just means that you can have more decimal points, right? And so what we have seen in Bitcoin is continued concentration of wealth, which is exactly what you would expect from a system that is capped in its total quantity. Effectively, Bitcoin has recreated monopoly money. There's a finite quantity, you're playing a game, you're distributing the Bitcoin or monopoly money amongst the various players. But because it is capped in its totality, it ultimately means that any mistake by any player compounds over time, and as a result, the holdings consolidate. And that is unfortunately exactly what we're seeing in Bitcoin. It's effectively an extractive system that concentrates wealth in the hands of the original holders, even though people will argue that it was a fair distribution, that anyone could have gotten it, etc. The simple reality is that's not what defines the system today.
He would be a great fit for the turning point, Versan. We have to reach out.
I already did.
I
already sent him a message saying, I loved your view on Bitcoin, and I was hoping you could come on the show and explain it a little more thoroughly for our audience.
He's worth coming. He's worth coming.
Yeah. Well,
it completely supports the on-chain evidences that I just uncovered when I was talking. I mean, we have millions and millions of Bitcoins that were mined back in Satoshi's era. that are clearly concentrated in the hand of a few. So the entire Bitcoin supply shock, that's a huge lie that won't ever happen. And I love how he said the Satoshi's distribution. I mean, yes, people can hold Satoshis, but doesn't change the fact that we have a huge amount of Bitcoins. The fact that it can be infinitely divided in Satoshis doesn't change the fact that it's concentrated in the hand of a few.
Yeah, but I think, see, what's so critical about what he said, number one, is that they tell you to hold this stuff, right? And this is how they tout it to the people, the speculators who are, trying to get a piece of the action. And they're doing this blindly because they're handing their wealth to the early Bitcoin whales. And that is, again, the trap, because what do they always do? That's why these cycles repeat. They rotate it into physical metals, okay, land, real assets. And what they've been doing is also positioning themselves for the future of finance, hence the title of this video, the technologies that are building the infrastructure. If anyone can't see this, there's a big conflict of interest, I would say, because this is how the rich intend to confiscate more of your wealth and position themselves for the future that they're not warning you about. And that's what we're trying so hard to do over here. You could play the Bitcoin, like I said, you can go long Bitcoin, but make sure that you're treating it as a politicized asset and taking profits and rotating it the same way they do. So play their game as well. And I think that's how you can at least win if you're playing Bitcoin.
Totally agree. I think the only opportunity is unless you are a multi-millionaire hedge fund. For retail investors, the opportunity, the window has closed a long time ago.
For wealth.
Yeah.
For wealth generation, it is certainly closed. Yes, Ed.
For BTC, it's closed. I mean, think of the average person, if they're going to invest $10,000 in BTC right now, and if it goes to, let's say, 250,000, which is very unlikely, it's just a 2x. I mean, it's over long time ago. And I want also to make it very clear, the higher it goes, the higher the probability that we're going to have a massive crash. Because if they are to, let's say, let's talk about the dormant BTC wallets, why they didn't bother to move these funds when BTC was below $100,000? Think about this. Why they all? Some people say, oh, it's for security. Well, that's also ruled out. They upgraded to a new version of wallets, but they didn't upgrade all the funds, so they didn't follow a pattern. Not all wallets moved to the new wallet formats of BTC. So that really says that it was probably based on the price. They moved 80,000 BTC when it went above $100,000, period. Now, if 80,000 BTCs are to move towards a centralized exchange and they decide to market sell, what do you think happens to the price of BTC? And when would they do that? Do you think they would do that when BTC was $70,000 or when BTC is $120,000? These are the questions that are worth asking. And we have shown many times the charts of the liquidity on BTC. There is no volume, there is no demand, there's zero institutional demand. Do you think MicroStrategy is buying BTC now? They are only making
it. They're rotating it. And, to your point,
they are just creating headlines, but they have no on-chain proof.
Yeah, 100%.
So, any extra thoughts on that, Versan?
Well, I think you're right. There's a lot more we should jump into here shortly. I don't want this whole discussion to be about politicizing Bitcoin because it already is a politicized asset. Do I think it will go higher? I think so. In the meantime, being realistic, because that mechanism's still at play. But again, it's just a potential risk to understand that if Bitcoin is ever going to survive later on down the road, I think it's going to depend on some of the other infrastructure that we're here to talk about. So we'll see how
I think the only hope in the future if they tokenize BTC on the XRP ledger. I think that's the only hope.
Yes.
For BTC on the long term. Otherwise, I just think it has no future at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, we could even see right now, we're already looking at new all-time highs, not just in Bitcoin, but many other digital assets across the board. Also, we're seeing this in key commodities. So Bitcoin just broke another, 120,000 now. And I got a little excited this morning. I saw XRP actually reclaimed its third spot again, took over Tether. I was happy to see that, reclaiming its rightful place, you know. And then I saw XRP break $3, and I said, "Hey guys, we have a new support level here," and then it just went right back under 2. And again, it just shows how heavily suppressed this market really is, you know. But of course, if it starts holding at $3, that means all signs suggest it will eventually. We're going to see a lot of more powerful momentum in the upward trajectory. And this isn't just exciting, you know, it's monumental, because I think it's all aligning now with Ripple's banking license, the stablecoin convergence. All of this stuff is going to align eventually with the trajectory we've been talking about. But I think it's also important to keep in mind the reason why the whole market is up right now, before we get carried away really, is because number one, XRP, we have to be clear, hasn't decoupled from Bitcoin yet. It's still following these 4-year cycles that we've discussed countless times. It's not organic, I would say. To be honest, this is all associated with the big, beautiful bill. You're already seeing controlled injections of artificial liquidity into the system. I promise you, this is not speculation, what I'm saying here. It's artificial liquidity that's being injected to keep people's minds distracted off the bigger topics, maybe the Epstein list. I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but 100% controlled injections of artificial liquidity. The big players have essentially been given the green light to inflate the markets, and that's why we're seeing them up there, and I think they're going to take full advantage of it. But this is why you're seeing the surge in digital assets. That's also why you're seeing a surge now and a consolidation before the surge of gold and silver. And silver did just break another all-time high since 2011, because basically to support these higher debt levels, we're going to see you know, the metals, the commodities markets have to increase substantially to support all of this, because the debt is unpayable. So you're going to need metals to support all this eventually. And by the way, Texas just did something very historic. They recognized gold and silver as legal tender. And I don't think that's just symbolic. If you look very closely about the United States and the rest of the world, we're gradually moving in the same direction that the BRICS nations are moving. Have you noticed that? It's very interesting.
Yeah, sorry, man. Was just pulling out some sparkling water here. It's very, very hot in Greece. However, yeah, I totally agree, Versan. I think there is also something interesting that someone brought to the comments here, that the XRP limit dropping, 24 hours available limits to withdraw on some platforms. And I have this very interesting news as well. So there has been over 1 million XRP per hour leaving Upbit. That's an exchange. So in just 12 hours, more than 14 million XRP have been withdrawn from the exchange. So that's a massive outflow. That means less XRP on the exchanges, less available XRP for retail investors. So while everyone's trying to convince the world that there is a supply shock on BTC, which we just proved on-chain, that's not a reality. The exact same opposite is happening on XRP. More and more XRPs are being wiped out from crypto exchanges. I know the XRP that retail investors hold is very small compared to what financial institutions are acquiring behind the scenes. So I can totally see in the future XRP decoupling from BTC. Coming to your point, Versan, I know we are still following the cycle. I know that XRP still mainly follow BTC movements, despite the fact that, yes, if we look to the beginning of this cycle, it has been quite particular, because while BTC was moving, let's say, from $70,000 to close to $100,000, XRP basically outperformed BTC on what, 300 or 400%. I think in the future we're gonna have a separation. I don't think XRP is gonna be related anymore to Bitcoin's movements, because that's gonna be driven by real utility, no longer by speculation. I think that's the future, but we also have to be realistic and recognize that as today in 2024, sorry, 2024, where I have my mind.
Living in the past, huh?
Yeah. So as for today, yes, we still have to pay attention for the cycle. And I want to bring here, just give me a second, I have to share the screen. Is the Bitcoin dominance chart that I have been also watching very closely. Let me just share the screen. Yeah, so there it is. We still have a very high BTC dominance, which I see this in a very optimistic way, because if XRP is already at $3, basically, I know it's $2.97, but for the sake of making it a round number, it's already at $3, and BTC dominance is still 64%. That means there is a lot of gasoline for XRP. We haven't even broken above $3 for good, meaning we didn't create strong support levels there. And once BTC dominance starts to go down, and I estimate that when it goes to about 50%, perhaps is when the real action for XRP is going to start. That capital is going to also flow towards other digital assets as well. Not only XRP is going to benefit, so XLM, HBAR, Algorand, all the ISO to 0022 tokens. I know people are going to cry that, oh, it's not ISO to 0022 compliant. Well, Ripple is. I know it's a messaging system. However, we have to be watching for the dominance here. What do you think about that, Versan, and how is that going to affect the bull run?
Well, I mean, Bitcoin dominance always peaks, then it gradually comes back down. Same thing I mentioned earlier. They rotate those profits from speculators into altcoins, and then altcoins begin to move. But again, all of this is cyclical to the 4-year cycles. I'm just waiting for the right regulations to come into place and converge with everything that's been going on right beneath the surface of everything we're talking about here, for all of this to decouple. And when regulations come in, it's going to weed out the bad actors. So that's going to open up the floodgates for institutional money to come into this space. And that's when you look at the market cap in general of Bitcoin, I mean, of crypto in general. What is it? 3.72 trillion, something along those lines. You're talking about 7, 8, maybe 13 trillion eventually starting to come into the space. So I don't think we've seen anything yet. And by the way, I would like to address something that in the comments here, and this is why I don't like reading the comments, because somebody said, if Bitcoin needs XRP, then why would it be more valuable than XRP? I only have one question for this individual. Define what you mean by valuable. If digits on a screen is considered to be value, then I think you're missing the point here. And I'll leave it at that. I'm tired at this point of arguing with people that don't really take the time to do their research. So just leave that alone. But to your point, Edo, you're not wrong. Bitcoin dominance is still pretty strong. So we're going to see some interesting things play out. But I do want to touch on some additional XRP related developments, if that's all right. I believe we are preparing also to go live with the ProShares ETF, July 18th, if I'm not mistaken. We'll see how that plays out. That's going to bring lots of liquidity, new volume into the ecosystem, I would say, overall. And we've been open in the past, I think, about the view on and skepticism that I have personally on ETFs. It's not something I personally lean towards, but I understand the overall bigger picture. It's going to increase access, I would guess, and more exposure, which means increased movement. So more trading, more participation. That's a plus, I would say, overall. But that said, I do want to encourage the audience here. Don't just speculate on these things. And that's what ETFs are all about. Try to own the protocol, hold it yourself, custody it yourself. Stop giving control to people in the space who are trying to fear you into protecting your assets for you. You know who I'm talking about, right? These are people who want to monetize on your assets. I think what they're doing is very harmful to the community. At the same time, they're trying to prolong the idea that they can kind of monitor your assets and take care of them and custody them And I think it's all bullshit. Okay. Bear in mind also, these people are not even
Totally agree with
regulated.
this.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak out against it. These people are not even regulated. They're backed up by venture capitalists. And if you read the contract, and I guarantee you it's not in the contract, venture capitalists can pull out anytime they want, and the whole thing can collapse, and they still keep your assets. So try to learn how to hold it yourself, custody it yourself. If you need assistance, book a session with us and with Edo as well. We will walk you through the whole process, okay? Because in the digital economy, yeah, when the digital economy becomes fully online, and I mean, this is autonomous economies, okay? I wrote a piece about this. I got no attention, and that's fine. But machine-to-machine transactions, that is AI-driven automation, automation, my apologies, guys, autonomous systems that are exchanging value around the freaking clock. That's where you want to be positioned, like a digital toll booth. So if you can imagine that value starts to flow back and forth, and you're the one earning every time that value passes through, that's not science fiction. That's actually where this is all heading, and that's how you're going to build real generational wealth in this era. So I'll tell you right now, I'm not wrong. We're just very early on this. But overall, you need to custody your own assets. Don't start giving it to other people out there who are fear-mongering you. People think I'm doom and gloom. There are people in this space that are doom and gloom who are at the forefront of even the XRP community, pushing this stuff on people about backroom deals and backdoors. You know, that's why there are strategies.
Me and you, we have done a video together. We already explained for free everything people need to know about how to self-custody, get your cold wallets, and you don't have to worry. Why would you trust venture capitalists to take care of your own digital assets? I don't trust them. I keep my self-custody, and I see the same experience. So I work for a law firm that's based in Portugal and in Cyprus as well. And I see this from the Bitcoin millionaires that all bought BTC back, the lucky ones that were happy enough to buy BTC when it was, let's say, $500 or $200, and today they are millionaires because they bought early when it was the right time to buy BTC. They didn't give away their self-custody. They kept self-custody. Why would we want to change something that is working out for these people? Now, the ones that tried different paths, perhaps they lost their BTC. I don't think the people who are holding BTC, for example, I know it's a different case on empty GOX, for example, that has collapsed overnight, are having the greatest time as the people who hold all these years through self-custody. Now, what I advise people in the future when XRP hits, let's say, $100 or $1,000, and you might want to off-ramp some crypto gains, you just get an international lawyer that works with blockchain technology and get a digital wallet certificate. And in that way, you're going to be able perhaps to lend your XRP to financial institutions when regulation is in place. Right now is not the time to give your XRP away on self-custody.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make enemies in this space. I really am not. I come into this space with good intentions. I really do. I'm people who know me know me. I am so adamant about teaching people self-custody, and I don't care what it costs. You have to learn this stuff. Stop leaving your digital assets with other firms. Okay, I don't care if they're promising you yield. I don't care what they're promising you. You can earn on this infrastructure on your own. And if you have time to do the research as far as the technology and what you're investing in, then maybe you should take the time to invest in an LLC by yourself. Learn how to do an LLC by yourself. Contact a lawyer specifically to teach you the right steps to take to put a trust around your wealth, because wealth is wealth. If it's not guarded properly, then it's not safe, right? But that's what some of these guys are promising you. You can do this stuff on your own, and it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but it's worth doing yourself instead of allowing somebody to hold your assets. And if you read the clause, I'm telling you, there are things in these clauses that are, I would say, very harmful. That's all. And
suspicious, again, at least, yeah.
Very suspicious, but worse than that, it's not what we should be pushing on others who don't understand what they're getting involved in here. Wait, I'm sorry, I'm reading the comments again. What do you mean regulations? Are you talking about Genius and Clarity Act? I think when regulations are in place, there's going to be a fine line between institutions that actually provide these services, and that could include banks. But who knows? I think there will. I read this before in 2023 that for those who are doing self-custody, would pay higher in taxes. But again, see, that's a red flag to me.
No,
It's like
I
they
don't
want to
think
charge you they want to penalize you for being your own bank and self-custody. See the incentive here?
I'll tell you guys, you only need to find a good law office that understands blockchain and regulation, gets a digital wallet certificate. Basically, you're going to get an international lawyer that's going to create a certificate for you to make sure you have the ownership, to make sure that banks understand you are the owner of this protocol. And by doing so, you're going to be able to lend your XRP to the financial institutions. Perhaps you're also going to pay zero taxes on the yield. Today, there is the right framework. The legal framework is available. You have countries. If you set your LLC on the right country, you're going to do it tax-free, I promise you. So don't fall for the fear narrative that these people are trying to push you on.
Yeah, but to your point, overall, you could take some time to do this yourself. That's all I'm saying to people. I'm just not encouraging others to go allow somebody else to be responsible for your
No.
asset.
At this stage,
Yeah.
I don't even need this. You don't even need a sophisticated lawyer, as I said, unless you are already a multimillionaire, which is not the case for the majority. But wait until regulation is in place, and that's how you're going to make yield out of your XRP. Also, don't go. We also say this countless times. Don't try to find places to generate yield now. You're going to risk your XRP for what? A 4-5%.
Yeah, and
Doesn't make
inflation will still outpace it until I think the smartest way to earn later on down the road is I'll tell you what I'm doing. I promised my audience I actually would say this publicly. So I applied for the yield to earn on RLUSD because now Uphold is offering this, and I'm sure other exchanges are. I'm trying to expedite it, and I'm testing it out. So I'm going to share this with you the minute I apply this and start testing it out. Okay, I'm deploying $12,000 of my own money into RLUSD, and I'm going to put it on the Uphold platform, and I'm going to see what it's like to earn the yield, which is right now at about 6%, I believe 5-6%. And bear in mind, why am I doing it specifically with RLUSD? Number one, it's because it's the only regulated institutional A-grade finance enterprise stablecoin out there. And because of that, if you look at the stablecoin demand, it's increasing significantly. That means that percentage is going to only increase as well because the demand is increasing, right? Again, at the end of the day, this is all about supply, demand, and scarcity when you really break everything down. So I am going to deploy my own $12,000 into RLUSD and see and do the math. I take notes down with everything, got my pen and paper right here. And I'm going to take notes to see what the cost was to get it in there and what is it going to earn me over the next 3 months. And I'm going to report that back here. And let's see if it actually outpaces the inflation because of the demand for stable coins. If it does, then there is a solution for this to earn passive income. If there isn't, then I guess we'll wait for the demand.
And the best part, Versan, is that you, in this case, let's say you are risking a stable coin. You're not getting your XRP out of your cold wallets for passive income.
No. Yeah, this is my own.
That's the point. It's $12,000. You are risking US dollars. You are not risking XRP, which I think is the whole point. That's why when you see any platform that's promoting XRP staking, you have to understand, and I say this for our viewers, is not make on chain. So you need to give away self-custody, which means you have to take a big risk in order to receive a low income and a low yield. I think is about 3 or 4 or 5%. And the higher the yield is, the higher the chances has come. So why would you want to take risks and remove your XRP from self-custody? I also see a lot of comments on how they can get the digital wallet certificate. I'm going to make a whole video on that this week so you guys can just watch it. And I don't think it's necessary for the majority of investors, but if you reach, let's say, a big portfolio, I would say above 3, 4, 500,000. I think that's a great way to protect your assets from taxation, and also if people want to borrow against the assets. But I don't recommend with XRP specifically.
Well, also to your point, I know there are some other things we'll talk about here. We want to talk about Korea also. Or was that Nathan? Nathan was supposed to join us today, I think.
Yeah, he had the problems with the internet on his Airbnb, so unfortunately, he couldn't join the live streaming.
Okay, well, where was I going with this? I guess we can cover some things in a bit about that. But overall, I think, you know, in due time, when there's regulation for this entire space, it's going to really set the precedent of how you can earn income later on. So again, just protecting everything right now, I think, is prudent. That's what we should all be doing. And I mean, we haven't seen anything yet. When there is regulation, that's when the institutional floodgates will open. And it will change the whole dynamic of the landscape moving forward. When I say regulation, people keep asking, what do I mean regulations? Well, what do you think I mean regulations? I mean stablecoin regulations. That is important. Stablecoin is the next phase, which opens the door for all of this, because you need to have a one-to-one ratio with whatever currency is out there. I think it's going to be XRP in due time. Because that's what XRP is eventually going to do. And I use my words very carefully, but in my opinion, which we said years ago, XRP is eventually going to become the digital reserve currency, not the reserve currency, the digital reserve currency for the digital ecosystem. This is yet to be understood and yet to be recognized by markets all over the world, yet they're positioning themselves for the very scenario. It's that obvious. Anyways, I don't know. Turn these comments off. I can't look at this stuff. It's very distracting.
Yeah, because it's so many of them, right? I know how it feels, man. I did a live alone, I think 3 days ago, and my mind was blowing, because when you are alone, you have to, I was trying to answer the comments and share the screen all simultaneously. I was saying, I tried to call you when I was live, by the way, for you to join me. I was needing some support. Anyways, if you guys watched my live, I hope you bought XLM. It was 25 cents. XLM has massively outperformed the entire markets. And I even said live that I was expecting XLM to even outperform XRP on the short term. And that's a reality for the last 2 or 3 days. So I hope people are paying attention to so many good calls we did, especially here on the turning point with SHX is also a beast on this cycle. It's massively outperforming the majority of the digital assets out there. Algorand also has exploded. So
this guy says I'm losing it. Okay, well, maybe I am a little bit, but it's because I have to answer so many questions that are something that's self-explanatory, really. But okay, thank you for the compliment. I'll take that as a compliment. There's another thing I think we should talk about. That's why I put this title, The Fed just upgraded system. Is that okay, Edo? Just cover that.
Yeah, please go ahead, man. Please go ahead. Let me see if I can bring some headlines here so I can share on the screen.
No, I'd appreciate that. Well, just to clarify, this is something most people are hearing for the first time. What is the T and the 0? I put a tweet out there. The T stands for transaction date. And the 0, the number that follows it, it used to be 2. That follows and indicates how many days after that date the actual settlement would occur. So it would be like 2 to 3 days, right? And basically the Federal Reserve, it's called Fedwire. They've been operating for the longest time on T+2 system. That means the real-time payments weren't actually in real time. It took 2 full business days for interbank transfers, for cross-border payments, and other high-value financial transactions to finalize through the SWIFT system, through many other systems that are traditional legacy systems, I would say. That recently did change. I don't know if this is above the surface or under the surface, but if you go to the Fed website, and I posted a tweet about this like a week ago, if I'm not mistaken, one of my dear friends and neighbors, he actually sent this to me, saying, Versan, you're not going to believe this. I got this alert. I put it on X. You guys can all check it out. And they were making, they were informing their clients that there was going to be some Federal Reserve updates, right? And if you look at the news today, and I'm not talking about the mainstream news because they're not even covering this stuff, the Fed officially did upgrade to T+0 same day settlement. This is big. This is a very big change. Basically, that means trillions and trillions of dollars in high value transfers and central bank reserves can actually move in real time. So it's not, it's not speculation anymore. This is incredible. It's a fundamental upgrade to the core of the traditional financial system. And then I put a tweet out this morning saying, or it's on LinkedIn, I'm sorry, but if you ask yourself which digital asset was specifically engineered from day one to handle instant cross-border settlements at that scale, and the answer has always been XRP. So again, the transition to T+0 is only going to accelerate the adoption of everything we've been talking about here. And regardless about what headlines say about delaying the ISO compliance, I really don't care. Headlines are always there as smoke and mirrors. They've been using the same delay tactics and same bullshit with Basel III, pushing regulatory deadlines while the adoption continues to happen anyways, quietly and persistently.
Totally agree, Versan. And let's not overlook that the transformation is happening not only in the United States, also Europe is planning to update its own system, its own rails for the digital euro. It's coming right now in October. They intend to have a second version of the euro. So that's basically, I would even call a CBDC, right? How many times we have said that any stable coin is the equivalent of a CBDC. That's my opinion. I think Versan shares the same opinion as myself. So we had Christine Lagarde coming out multiple times warning us, especially here in Europe, that we're going to see fully implementation of CBDCs by October. They will start to actually move towards the new system. And I think if we consider that XRP Ledger is the only robust blockchain that can handle such a volume of transactions and that has been proven over time, that can also have an impact on XRP's price. I truly believe if we have confirmations that the digital euro is going to run on top of the XRP Ledger, I think that's very possible. I already made countless videos pointing out to the connections between the digital euro. Bank of France has successfully tested on top of the XRP Ledger. I have proof of that as well. So that really makes us understand that they are updating the systems. I think people don't wait anymore for 5 seconds to update a web page. We live in a world that everything moves fast. Information moves across the globe in a matter of seconds, even faster than seconds. So there is no way we're going to live in a world that payments are not moving freely and easy, just like information. So I think the next natural step is that we're going to have blockchains that deliver fast finality, just like the XRP Ledger, that are going to reach the mainstream population. And what's going to happen down the road is that people are going to be transacting on top of the XRP Ledger without even acknowledging that they are moving their money on the rails of the XRP Ledger. I think that's the ultimate goal of Ripple. I think they have, besides the fact that XRP is also set to be a world reserve currency, we're going to see this whole new financial system that's going to run on top of the XRP Ledger. Versan, want to make some thoughts on the digital euro?
Oh God, I can go on and on. I mean, these conversations never end, and that's why most of them take place off record. But just for everyone, this is really just the beginning on a much bigger level. And I think those who have been patient, those who have done the research, those who tuned out all the noise over the years are now beginning also to reap the rewards of being on the right side of all of this. And what we're seeing right now, this is just a glimpse of what's coming. Even with CBDCs, and I hate to say this, but if central bank digital currencies in fact do come into fruition, and I think to some degree they have to, because again, you can't exclude all the billions of people out there that have no mechanism to transact with. We always hear from people in this space, and I'm talking about the Q movement for the XRP space. You know what I'm talking about, guys. These are people who saying there will never ever be a CBDC. Okay, well, these are the same individuals who say only a few people know what they hold. Okay, that's fine. That means we're a small community that has access to this technology, got to play around in the sandbox, and now we have the upside. Okay, well, what about everybody else? What happens when everything goes digital and they have no access to any of the technology we're talking about? What are they going to transact with? It's a very simple question. Something digital, no doubt, right? And when you start to see even CBDCs or UBI, whatever the hell you want to call it, come into fruition, you're going to look at the current crypto, the market cap of crypto. And like I said, it's about 3.7 trillion. And that includes thousands of scam coins and other projects out there with zero utility. Imagine what happens when the bad actors are actually purged, regulations are firmly in place, and utility-driven protocols lead the charge. And we're not talking about incremental growth. We're talking about a multi-trillion dollar explosion in value. I would say in 5 to 10 years, maybe even sooner, it's very possible we could be staring at about 20 or 30 trillion market cap in crypto. And that's not hopium. That's actually structural inevitability. I would say this is indeed the greatest wealth transfer we've been talking about forever. And it's the last one, not the last, but hopefully not the last. It's going to be the greatest one we'll ever see in our lifetime. And that's why you need patience, but also strategy, you know? And if you are, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, Versan, just someone is asking what's our favorite cold wallet. So just in both channels, you will find on my channel and also Versan's channel, we recorded a video where we explained very deeply about the cold wallet. So you can just watch the video. And we're going to show that also. We give the instructions how you can use and protect your digital assets. Yeah. And we are reaching the 1 hour, 56 minutes. We have 8,000 people watching live. Any final thoughts, Versan, before we close the streaming?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to trim some profits, you know, be smart about it. Make sure that you're rotating it into hard assets. You know, I told you I personally bought 2 gold buffaloes again because gold and silver, they came a little bit down as the crypto market was going up, right? Remember, this is a debt-fueled economy that requires harder and more stable forms of collateral to anchor whatever's coming next. And that means you're going to need hard assets. These things are going to be worth a lot of money very soon. And of course, in a digital economy, it'll be worth even more. So that's one of my final thoughts. And of course, I do want to make sure everyone goes and supports Edo's work. I know he's been through hell this week. So please just support what he's doing on his YouTube channel. And I'm very sorry about what you went through, Edo.
Oh, thanks so much, Versan. That means a lot. It's very stressful, and you run a YouTube channel, and people sometimes underestimate how much efforts we put, also how much investment from own pocket that we put to run a YouTube channel. I mean, it's not only about the equipment, it's so much time invested as well. So it's very frustrating when they come and take your channel down, or they censor your content, or they give you a strike without any reason. That also upsets me, that all of these tech companies make it almost impossible to have a decent customer experience. And I was having this reflection when I was trying to reach out for support, both for YouTube and TikTok. It's virtually impossible to talk with a human being, and they just keep giving you these automated messages. And the bad news is that they're going to do the same for the whole society. So they're going to make the autonomous government decisions. And guess what? When you want to complain about something, the government withdraw your own stablecoin for your bank accounts via blockchain technology and clawback features. Who are you going to complain to? You're going to be talking to robots. That's how. So I really understood this. It was a hellish experience that I have been through in the last 2 weeks. And it really made me understand the future has to be more and more offline, because they're going to pull out AI to handle customer supports. And I promise you, when you want to get something fixed, the worst case scenario is to rely on automated decisions that are imposed by the ones that are above, if you understand what I am telling here. So be very careful in the future, guys. I think blockchain technology is both the ways that we're going to make so much money, but the same means they're going to use that to control the masses. So be very careful. That's why I chosen to be an early investor than a late adopter. and they're going to reshape society. Artificial intelligence is going to play a big role. They're going to make the gap between the rich and the poor is going to be absolutely wild. That's happening in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think from my side is everything. If you guys can drop some comments, drop your country, where are you based on, so you help us with the algorithm. So we're going to reach more people that helps and supports our work. I don't know if you want to add something. I was supposed to say something and I forgot. Go ahead, Versan, if you have something else. Meanwhile, I'm trying to remember. It was important.
I'm sure it was. Maybe while I'm saying this, you could remember, okay? But this is a specific message to the audience, because we all know that we're undergoing so many massive transformations. And the sad part about it, in my opinion, is that digitization seems to be at the heart of it all. And we're seeing a critical intersection of finance, identity, power, and technology converge. And we talk about protocols here. We talk about the infrastructure. We talk about all the systems being built around us. Okay. But it's also important to always come back to the deeper truth. And I think that's the one thing we seem to miss so much in this space, is that we're not just users of technologies. Don't forget, we are human beings, meaning we are beings of light. So beneath the politics, the ideologies, all the labels, the bullshit itself, it's all about consciousness, and tied together, I think, something far greater than we could ever have been taught to believe from an early age. It's a very old story, but society has programmed us to focus again on division, race, hatred, religious status, status in general, everything that you see around us. But again, these are illusions. Remember that. And that's how deep the programming has gotten. And it's embedded into the very architecture of the systems and the world we rely on. So, shit, it scares me sometimes, because we can't lose sight of that bigger picture, because then we become products of the system, not just users.
Totally agree, Versan. Yeah, I don't remember what I was about to say, but I have something else. My final message. Yeah, I'm very tired these days working so much. When crypto goes up, actually my cortisol levels go up as well, as I work mainly with crypto. I have more content to do, more work, so it's a lot of work. Just guys, remember, if you made life-changing gains and you are not yet, let's say, financially free, I totally recommend that you secure some profits. I don't recommend, however, taking profits on XRP, and this is not a financial advice, but when there is euphoria in the markets, and right now, let's be honest, there is kind of a lot of euphoria in the markets. You can never forget that sometimes unexpected events can come out. So please make sure you secure at least some life-changing gains if you made with crypto. I think it totally makes sense to diversify on hard assets, real estate. I don't think in the United States, I don't really understand the dynamics there, but I do have a feeling that's quite a bubble. But if you are in other parts of the world, for example, in Greece, I have been buying properties. That gives also more security for myself for the future. So I took profits in different digital assets. I'm not selling my XRP, but if you have a diversified portfolio, you can have the luxury to take some profits and diversify gold, silver, real estate. I think that's a nice way also to make sure you get something out of this bull run, because as I said, there is about 80,000 BTC that are circulating around. If they send that to an exchange, that can be fatal. So you don't want to be hanging on these threats without taking some profits. That being said, special thanks to the audience. We're almost hitting 9,000 people, and we're going to see you next Monday.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. And try to get us to 100,000 subscribers, please. I'm going to keep asking people until we get there.
It's coming soon. It's coming soon.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.